top 5 teams in the portal so far. Obviously, some of this is quality over quantity. Some of it is quantity and an improvement of your overall talent level, although it's not deep. And then some is a little bit of both. Number 5. And look, I also want to make special mention of Texas Tech here. I need to see a couple more of their things fall down. And Texas only has 2 transfer commitments right now, but they're obviously those bear noticing. But if you're a Tech or Texas fan in the chat room, I'm giving you honorable mention right now and also acknowledging that this is not a complete list. This is just through the first couple weeks who's really made some news. Kentucky and Mark Stoops. Look, bringing in a former 5-star quarterback in Brock Vandegrift, who was just blocked at Georgia to play in Liam Cohen's offense is really good. Bringing in a really good running back and a senior in Chip Trainum to replace Ray Davis from Ohio State, really good. Bringing in Raymond Cottrell, a wide receiver from A&M with some upside. Really, really good there as well. He was a 4-star recruit, didn't play much at A&M, but he's there. And I think the best one that they have overall, Jamori Macklin coming in from North Texas to play in that offense with Liam Cohen. Really, really good for Kentucky. Not a lot of volume for the Wildcats so far, but what they have gotten is going to play for them and play a lot.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about the other guys like I know about Jamori Macklin, but a guy from that part of the country that's going back, I guess, sort of Midwest-ish and going to be in the SEC, which is a big jump from UNT, but he had a really good year for the Mean Green. Really solid player. Is a 4-star type of portal player, I believe is what his ranking got adjusted to. And Mark Stoops and company, I mean, again, it's anybody in the SEC or in the Big Ten, it's just the room gets more crowded next year. I know it does in the Big 12 as well, but it's a little bit different. It's Oklahoma and Texas rolling into town, and Kentucky's been able to find a nice little sweet spot, but with no divisions and just the mass there, I wonder where they sort of find themselves now moving forward. But, yeah, so far they've gotten off to a nice start, and I really like that Macklin pickup. Number 4, Arizona State. This one more about quantity than maybe like knocking you over. The best rated prospect they have is freshman wide receiver from USC, Rayleigh Brown, who's kind of a wide receiver running back slash kind of a guy. Kenny Dillingham obviously does well with those guys who have a lot of flex, but when they brought in another quarterback, Sam Levitt from Michigan State, but LaTerrence Welch from LSU and Cameron Harpole from San Diego State, Javon Robinson from Wazoo, Marquiston Douglas, a tight end at FSU that is a really good player. They've just got guys who are better than the ones they have on the roster. They did lose Jalen Conyers to Texas Tech, and I think that hurts a little bit, but it did replace him with 2 guys already. But I like what Kenny Dillingham is doing in that is a roster that they had to kind of pick bare, and he is going volume-wise and getting guys who are maybe not 4 and 5 stars right now, but they barely had 3 stars on the roster, and they're getting better players that are going to be able to compete better as they move into the Big 12.
Go follow Chris Karpman's Twitter feed. We've had him on many times, realignment lately as well, because of their success in recruiting, and it never ends. It's just one after another with what Dillingham and Arizona State are doing.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Joey Sua from Arkansas, a very good defensive lineman, Kamari Wilson from Florida, pretty decent safety as well. So they've got guys who are good. Like, again, this is not the roster that's going to win Arizona State the Big 12, but it's going to keep them probably from going 2-10. And they will probably improve next year.
Yeah, it seems like they touched on just about every position imaginable in the portal so far. I mean, bulking up everywhere you can. Couple tight ends. Address the line a little bit on offense and defense, safety, wide receivers. I mean, they're kind of all over the place. But it's interesting. I hadn't noticed this before. I don't know when it changed over because I don't look at these a lot. But just to try and keep track here, because I won't pretend like I know everybody that Arizona State's bringing in so far. I went to sort to find Arizona State, and I'm like, why they're not showing up here? And I go to the Pac-12, and there's just 2 teams listed. And I'm like, is that because they only have 2 team sites? And then I realized, oh, wait, look at the Big 12 link, and there they are. Yep. And that took me a second to I don't know when that officially changed over, but it is now. Like they're now, for all intents and purposes, moving into the Big 12. So, they're the one that has the most questions to answer of the 4 that are rolling in. I mean, Arizona's coming off of a red-hot year, especially given recent years. Utah's Utah, and then Colorado with with Dion, you know that they're already loading up pretty huge as well, which I'm sure Paul may or may not touch on. But, they've got a lot of work, so we'll see how the Sun Devils come rolling into Big 12 country.
I may just touch on them as they are number 3 on the list.
There we go.
So Colorado has brought in 5 new offensive linemen. And Garrett, I'll ask you again like I did earlier today. How many new offensive linemen did they need at Colorado?
All they can get.
Yes, they needed at least 5 because they have a very good quarterback in Shadur Sanders who was pummeled down the stretch of the season so much that he was injured, and they need to keep him upright. They brought in 2 different quarterbacks, one from Vanderbilt, one from Kentucky. The one from Kentucky, Destin Wade, is part of the Wade twins. His brother is an edge rusher. Probably more valuable to them in the immediate future than is Destin Wade, who'll be one of the backup quarterbacks. But Will Shepard, wide receiver from Vanderbilt, is a nice pickup for them to go with the skill players that they already have. And again, they needed to get better up front. They've done that, getting players on that side of the ball, both sides of the ball. Plus, an interesting one I'm going to throw out there in Cordell Russell from TCU, who didn't really hit his potential at TCU, but he's from North Mesquite. An interesting player that
the Stallions,
if they can find a way to work him in, will be good.
They did get another defensive lineman commit today, but they lost Matthew Bedford, who had committed to them, a transfer. He now has committed to Oregon. So even if you're in the transfer portal, you can change your mind a couple of times, and that's what Bedford did today.
Colorado's added 15 already.
I think it's 16 now.
Oh, yeah. But 15 is this
17.
morning.
It's 20.
As of this morning.
That's a crazy number to already have, and you wonder how high that goes. What is the ceiling on how many transfers? I mean, there's a lot of offensive linemen, as you pointed out, that are already a part of this mix, and rightfully so. Receivers, too. I mean, they're kind of all over, but, it's hard to not notice the particular emphasis on the offensive line and on the quarterback position there, where they've really gone heavy, and wide receiver too. So yeah, I mean they're a unique team because of their head coach with an interesting microscope on them. We saw how big and bright that was early on, and we saw how it just went away at a certain point. Everybody pretended like they weren't hyping them up early on in the season, right? But they'll get that offseason hype rolling, especially if they can change up this offensive line. They may have a little something because Shador's a great player, man. I mean, Shador's really good, but he just had no protection this past year. So, yeah, I'm very interested in how they continue to retool and kind of the hype machine this offseason for Dion in year 2.
One of the guys they got today, by the way, is Houston defensive lineman Chidozie Nwankwa, who played quite a bit for them. He's a kid out of Richmond Foster High School who committed to Colorado after playing for Houston.
And you see Dion's already back into Texas loading up guys. I mean,
he's got a number of Texas guys already.
Yeah, a number of Texas guys. Number 2, Louisville. Look, Jeff Brom had to probably, they coached well above where everybody thought they would be this year and rolled through. But if I'm Jeff Brom and I'm looking at that ACC championship game, my goal is, okay, how do I get to that level that Florida State is on? Because they beat me without their quarterback, and the fourth quarter of that game, I had no shot to score. How do I change that in a game where this should have been the recipe for me to beat this team, and it wasn't? So how do you do that? Well, you load up on big-time athletes, which they have done. I'll point out 2 in particular. Wide receiver Colin Lacey, who had a great year at South Alabama. Ask Mike Gundy about him in particular. And then
Oklahoma State's defense coordinator,
and then one that is that was kind of a surprise to me. I thought he was going to have a bigger year the way that he kind of played last year. Ja'Cory Brooks at Alabama. He went in the portal. That's one that could be really a nice highlight for them if they get him going. But they have addressed every position of need: cornerback, defensive line, offensive line, including a player out of Harvard named Thor Griffith, a defensive lineman that was on the freaks list. And he is coming to Louisville. So Jeff Brom is making moves there with the Cardinals and trying to close that gap at the top of the ACC.
There's going to be so many Thors in about 10 more years from the MCU mania. I feel like there's at least one Thor, it feels like, in college football every year at this point. But Thor Rodoni, who used to be at Baylor, is who I think of as well. But Yeah, I mean, Tyler Shuck was an interesting pickup there at quarterback, and I think it's pretty clear where they feel like their needs are on offense. I mean, nearly the entire class is offensive. Linemen, Shuck at quarterback, wide receivers, tight ends. And I think there's a couple of defenders that are there. They had a good defense. But, yeah, they're clearly trying to spruce up the offensive side of the football, and they're adding some numbers, that's for sure.
Now, with Tyler Shuck, I think they're probably going to have to add another quarterback just to be safe because he's not made it through an entire year unscathed. Number one, and this should come as no surprise, right now, it's the self-proclaimed Portal King, Lane Kiffin. Although I wouldn't say he's necessarily the Portal King yet, but if he pulls this class off, especially if they add Walter Nolan, he will be at least for this year. But just today, they added Mississippi State cornerback DeCamerion Richardson, Juice Wells of South Carolina, two different players, Tyler Barrett and Tamarion McDonald from Tennessee. Princey Umanliman, who I'm never going to say that right, from Florida, who's an amazingly good player. Key Lawrence of Oklahoma. They have, I'm leaving somebody out. Jerquan Scott from Southern Miss. Lewis Moore of Indiana. They have just loaded up on players. And Chris Paul, a linebacker from Arkansas, was one of the highest ranked linebackers in the portal. And 4 of the top 13 JUCO players. Ole Miss is gunning for it right now. They're trying to win the SEC in 2024 and get in that college football playoff. And if they don't, I mean, that would be something because this is a team that is looks like they're going to be loaded for bear.
Well, that would be something too. When there's 12 teams that are going to make it, so if you're not making it at that point, then like what do you have to do, or what was the roadblock in front of you? How many other SEC teams were taking up spots, or how many Big Ten teams, or whoever? But yeah, I mean they're going for it, and I commend them for that. They're definitely going SEC heavy as well. I mean, if you look at their list of transfers, I mean, with the exception of a couple guys, it's all programs from the SEC that they're grabbing guys from. So that's just an interesting note that I picked up, and I include Oklahoma into that now at this point. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason he's called the Portal King. Some of it's self-advertising, sure, but they also hit it heavy, and they're right there out in front right now, as you said and as you pointed out. So yeah, they're going for it, and I'm excited to see what that looks like next season and what is going to be a very thick and crazy and heavy SEC race.
Garrett, did you get the last one I just sent you?